And we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing good, Jeremy. I bet you just can't contain yourself that it's Mass Effect Day.
Yeah, N7 Day for me is like Christmas 2.0. Because, granted, some years I'm really disappointed. This year, I'm in a very good mood. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. Before we're going to talk about all the Mass Effect stuff later in the show. But I'll say this: N7 Day is a day I normally expect maybe concept art. Like I went into today expecting nothing, just concept art, and I was fine with that. I know Mass Effect is a while off, but we got a trailer today, and we'll talk about that later in the show. I'm just excited. We have a ton of stuff to talk about today. It's going to be a great show, and other than I think pretty much today is going to be overall really positive episode. I think people are going to enjoy it. So if you're an Xbox fan or gaming fan, you're going to enjoy today's show. Anyway, Logan, before we get into all the topics, have you been playing anything interesting?
Yeah, I just wrapped up Alan Wake 2, and my goodness, man, like as if this year didn't need another game of the year. Um th- it's incredible. Simply put, it's mastercraft. It's hang it in the lurve. It's whatever your epitome of art is, that game is just transcendent. It's like a culmination of all this stuff that doesn't even sound like on the surface if you mixed them together it would be anything good, but it's just brilliantly done. And playing through it and playing through all the other ones in the series, the universe, just I can't wait for the expansions. And it really reminded me that, oh, by the way, Quantum Break is in this universe as well, and Microsoft just so happens to be sitting on it. So wake up, snap snap, let's get that approved. Like, if you see the glowing reception Alan Wake 2's getting across the board, like, why wouldn't you want to jump in that and keep the ball rolling?
Yeah, is that the only game you've been playing?
Also, I just beat that, and then I've been playing Chasm the Rift. It's a boomer shooter from '97 that got remastered. It's very much like Quake, but it was made from a Ukrainian studio, and it's really interesting. I'm enjoying it. How about you, man?
Well, I finished Jusant. It's a climate adventure game launched in Game Pass last week. Very cool game. If people want something different that's like original, play that. I finished it in about 5.5 hours, and I missed exactly 60% of the collectibles. So I think, realistically, people can just chill, play it a day at a time. Probably, if you want to collect everything, I'm just going to guess it's about 7 hours. That's just a rough guess.
Oh, that's
But
not too bad.
yeah, but very good game. I think people should download it. Small file as well. Starfield. I'm just playing a little bit of that at a time. As I've said in previous shows or the past two episodes, I've been dealing with a really bad chest infection. While I can speak, barely now. Chest still hurts to breathe, move, do anything. So I'm playing little bits of games at a time, and mainly Alan Wake 2. Wow, you know when Alan Wake 2 was first showing off, I was just expecting a really good game. And when it came out, I didn't expect it to be this good. I didn't expect it to be, oh, so people are going to be talking about this when the Game of Year conversation comes up. Wow. And I'm playing it, and it's getting better and better. And I've been asked a few times about this, so I'll talk about it now. I seem to be only posting screenshots or clips mainly about Saga, the other character players in the game. And the main reason is that there's certain parts of Alan Wake's missions, or I should say chapters, I don't want to spoil for people. I think Logan knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and like this level that we're not talking about, I complain about there not being enough originality in AAA games. Like everything is the same over and over again, just pretty graphics. And I'm playing Alan Wake, and I'm thinking this is actually different. It's refreshing. It's a horror game, and there's stuff that happens in this game that kind of takes you by surprise. So, like, what a good game! What a good game! And I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with that because it's going to be a big seller for Christmas as well. And I don't know. I think that they have a massive hit on their hands. Like, if this game doesn't sell well, I'd be absolutely shocked. I could talk about Alan Wake all day. And speaking of Alan Wake, we have the first super chat of the day. Thank you very much, Nick W, for $10. He says Alan Wake 2 is fantastic. You're right on the money there, because look, I've talked about this in the past. Alan Wake is one of my favorite games of all time. Like, I just needed it to be good. I didn't need it to be a masterpiece. I didn't need it to be one of the best games of the year. I just wanted a good game. And I'm looking at this thinking, this has really made Game of the Year very tough for me. And what can I say? Like, I've checked the amount of chapters in the game, and I think I'm around 60% done. It's a pretty big game.
Oh man, it gets nuts.
And I've said before, like, I'm a scaredy cat when it comes to horror games. I'm terrified when I'm playing games. I think I was scarred as a child playing Resident Evil 2. Maybe that's why. So, like, Resident Evil, I struggle with. I tried to play Outlast. I thought my heart was going to burst out my chest. Alien Isolation took me 33 hours to finish. Like, I was terrified playing that game. 33 hours of me basically spending most of that time in lockers hiding from the alien. And yeah, it's fantastic. Like, again, thank you very much, Nick W, for the $10. He's right. Like, it is superb. And even if people aren't into horror games, I think they should try it. It's kind of 50%. I don't want to say Resident Evil. It's 50% Resident Evil-esque, but like there's this True Detective element to it. And I'm talking about True Detective Season 1, the good one. But it's great. It's genuinely great. And I've always been a fan of Remedy. I always talk about their games. Sam Lake last night retweeted my Quantum Break post. I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I'm just being optimistic, There's so many ties to the other games. Alan Wake, American Nightmare, Alan Wake, the Signal, the Writer DLCs, Control. Like, Kojima gets all this talk for years, and deservingly so, about this creative genius making these absolute bat crap crazy like games. But I've always been on the frame of mind that, yeah, he makes amazing titles with amazing stories, but Sam Lake is a creative genius. Like, you cannot play this game and think otherwise. And if you're a fan of Sam Lake, you're going to see a lot of Sam Lake in this game. Like, Sam Lake.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like Sam Lake. Carry on.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying Sam Lake plays like 15 characters in this game. But yeah, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, without getting spoilery, I love how he gets himself into the game and plays like this fourth wall with some other stuff that Remedy saw. Remedy's fans long time will catch and get and go, oh, how did they bring all of this together even when I never would have thought it was connected? And it's brilliantly done.
Yeah, and I have seen a few people in chat and online mentioned that the whole it's digital only thing. They came out and said like they want this game to sell well. Obviously, it being a horror title in a busy time, and Epic Games is publishing it. Releasing it digitally means they could go cheaper. So in the UK, I followed the top paid list on Xbox. It's at number 5, but the first 2 games are actually FIFA. So for a horror game to do that well when FIFA, or should I say Football FC or whatever it's called now, when that's popping off and people are enjoying that, like that's really good. That's a good sign. They have 2 expansions planned already, premium expansions. There's also a free DLC coming. We're also going to get a new Game Plus mode and a photo mode. People will go nuts with that photo mode because I'm putting this out there. This is probably the best looking game that's ever released, ever. And I can't really think of anything that'll like touch it. Like, Logan, can you think of any other like let's just say a third person or first person game that looks as good as Alan Wake?
I mean, that's really tough. Like, maybe certain parts of The Witcher or Witcher 3, Series X, the remaster basically, or like stylized games, or like Gears 5, the Series X basically remaster they did, like it takes a truly transcendent studio that has mastered their engine craft to make a game as visually impressive as this. And there are very few, I'd say, that hold up with it.
Yeah, I mean, like you could look at things like Forza Motorsport, but that's like a racing game where it's designed to be literally photorealistic. So like, I think we can put it in a different category. But yeah, Alan Wake 2, it's just great. It really is. I'm just guessing that by the time I'm done with the game, I might be between 25 to 28 hours of the game, and that for me, that's a great length for a game. Logan, do you know how long it took you to finish it?
It took me, I think, 40ish. I'm not sure, but
Wow.
I did all the collectibles, like all the nursery rhymes and all the random this and that to collect and acquire and figure out and solve. But if you're just going straight for find the pages you need to get through the story and go to checkpoints and stuff, it won't take as long.
Yeah, I think there's something this game does really well, and I apologize, people listening, for us talking about Alan Wake for a century, but it's an important game that we need to talk about because this game does something which I think more devs need to do. It takes the concept of collectibles and makes them useful. So you
Oh,
have
fun.
yeah, and fun. You have the nursery rhymes where if you complete one, you get a like a little pendant or something. What do you call them? Charms.
Yeah, for your bracelet.
Yeah, and charms offer you basically, character centric buffs. So one will give you like 15% more health, or one will give you like an X amount of chance of retaining ammo when you've shot a rifle or something like that. And then when it comes to I'm trying to think how to explain this without spoiling it. Throughout the game, you'll find manuscripts, but you'll also find these lunch boxes with manuscript pieces. And when you find them, you can upgrade a weapon. So just stuff like that. Like I think, like in the first game, when you collect the collectibles, like the thermoses and stuff, nothing really happens. And I think a lot of games do that, where it's just you collect stuff and that's it. Well, in this game, it actually rewards you and encourages you to collect stuff. So you're going to go off the beaten path and all this stuff. And a lot of early on in the missions, it'll actually show you on the map where collectibles are. Things like, stashes and stuff. And I've never felt really short of ammo in this game outside of one section. I always feel like the game has given you enough ammo and batteries to get through a chapter, which is really nice because with Resident Evil in the past, I've struggled. Maybe a skill issue. Maybe it's because I'm terrible at those games. But Alan Wake 2, I feel like. Logan, did you feel like Alan Wake gave you enough ammo and like batteries and stuff throughout each chapter?
Oh yeah, like I ended up with like partly because I did all the collecting and stuff, but I ended up with just like loads and loads of stuff to where I was having to discard or go back to a save room to deposit. Like I ended up with like so many flares, flashbangs, shotgun shells, everything. It also depends on what difficulty. Like if you're a psychopath and you want to play it on like nightmare difficulty or whatever, then it'll make it to where you know you're real you're up a creek without a paddle and you have like 5 bullets and you better make it work. But if you play it on a normal difficulty, yeah, they take care of you.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone would enjoy this game on the hardest difficulty. But the good thing is you can actually get all achievements no matter what you're playing on. Could be easy, normal, whatever. I like the fact that it just gives you a bunch of options, ways to play. And the thing is, I feel dumb right now because I discovered this game mechanic yesterday in Alan Wake 2. I had no idea it was a thing. So in Alan Wake 1, you shine the flashlight at an enemy and it weakens them, and then you can take them out with a traditional weapon. Right? Everyone knows that. In Alan Wake 2, it's kind of the same. But when you're playing as Alan, there's these shadowy like figures walking around. I thought you had to concentrate the flashlight on them as well. It turns out you just pointed at them. You don't waste battery power, and you can just wipe them out that way. Did you know that?
Um, no, I didn't know that on some of them.
Yeah, like I was just playing yesterday, and I didn't have to waste any battery. I just just aimed at them, and it was fine. But yeah, Alan Wake, it's going to be in the Game of the Year talk. Like for my Game of the Year video I've been working on, it's really threw a spanner into the mix because I don't know what to do. Um, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, a game I've finished, is my Game of the Year. I'm close to the end of Starfield. That may be my Game of the Year, or Alan Wake. It's going to be one of those three. Or if something else, maybe Avatar comes out and surprises me. And speaking of Avatar, let's get into all the topics because we have a lot to go over. So Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, want to get this out of the way. I love the Avatar franchise, right? I'll admit, I love those two films. Absolutely adore them. And for the longest time, I've been wanting more video games set in that universe, and we just haven't, which always surprised me. Like, you have these two films which made over $4 billion between them, and we get one video game, one console game in 13 years. Like, that's crazy. Well, anyway, the new game comes out in a month, exactly a month, I think, and it looks fantastic. I've seen some PlayStation 5 footage and some PC footage, and it is a gorgeous game. I think if people want to be back in that universe, back on Pandora, they're really going to like it. A lot of people have asked me, Jamie, isn't it just Far Cry, but with, Navi? And to me, I say, I knew that. I don't care. I like Far Cry. It is basically a Far Cry in a Pandora shell. Let's be honest. But I don't care. It looks good. Logan, have you kept up to date with Avatar at all? Does it interest you?
Yeah, it's one that interests me. I'm kind of over the whole Far Cry, experience, but I do love Avatar, and I really enjoyed the second one in particular. So I plan to check it out, but it won't be a day one for me. It'll be a wait a bit.
Yeah, I think Avatar is this weird franchise where it has like a lot of fans, but like there's a lot of people that just don't like the franchise. Although when the next film comes around, that'll make $2 billion. But like funny thing is, about a year and a half ago or something, I heard from a trusted source that this was going to be Ubisoft's Red Dead Redemption, and it's Ubisoft's Far Cry but blue. But hey, I think it looks great. I think that's going to be a very popular game that people get for Christmas. But yeah, just wanted to mention it. It looks good. I think people should check out some footage online. There's a bunch of 4K footage, and it looks gorgeous. Really gorgeous. It looks like they've captured what makes that world, I should say, moon, look alive. Anyway, let's move on. We have like way too many topics today. You know what? We have to get the show going. So, Like a Dragon, Gaiden comes to Xbox Game Pass in 3 days, I think. It looks fantastic. It's going to get an English dub expansion, like free update. And if they didn't say when, I'm guessing it's going to be a few weeks. And it looks very good. However, I just found out yesterday, apparently it's going to ship with a Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth demo, which is going to be like the next big Yakuza title. I think it looks really cool. Hey, Logan, are you interested in Yakuza at all, or the next Like a Dragon game?
Yeah, it's something I'll check out down the road. Like Avatar, it's not going to be a day one for me, but it's one I have interest in.
Yeah, just wanted to mention it because I think like I've never seen many people talk about the demo, and I just think that's kind of a big thing. I kind of like when developers ship a new game with a demo for something else. Kind of takes me back to how Crackdown came with the Halo 3 beta and just things like that. And I think it was at Zone of the Enders back in the day came with the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo. And everyone knows why we got Zone of the Enders. It was to play Metal Gear Solid. But yeah, anyway, both of those games look good. Let's talk about the Modern Warfare 3 drama, because, look, all the topics we have coming today, there's a bunch of good stuff and positive stuff, but I want to talk about Modern Warfare 3 because, like, whether, like, people are losing it because of the Metacritic score. It's a low score in COD. COD never scores really that high, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to Metacritic. The truth is that, Logan, are you aware of how low FIFA scores every year?
If I had to guess, I would guess in the D's or the low C's.
Yeah.
Because, sports games kind of get a a quote score tax. It is what it is. But guess what? The people obsessed with them don't care at all and buy them every single year.
Yeah, well, FIFA, like those games don't score high. However, they sell a lot. And when it comes to FIFA, and I know I was talking about COD, but FIFA I'm using as an example. Millions of people buy FIFA. They don't care about the score because we are all in this bubble where we all like hear about Metacritic, people talking about Metacritic. The general audience don't care. They don't even look at review scores. So like they look at a game, they think it looks cool, they buy it. That's why FIFA sells so much every year because people like the gameplay. And when it comes to COD, it's the same thing. COD scored low. IGN gave it a 4 or something out of 10, which I think is that's a bit low. And the truth is, everyone knew that this year was originally going to be a quote unquote a premium expansion for COD. I'm doing air quotes. And if that was the case, I don't think people would have been as angry. But we all know we're paying $70 or £70 for this premium expansion, basically. I mean, all this proof is out there that it was going to be an expansion. It doesn't have a platinum or something on PlayStation. It's asking for the wrong disc. It's showing up in the Modern Warfare 2 launcher. It's a bit of a mess. But the thing is, all this has been going on behind the scenes while Microsoft's been trying to buy Activision. And now that they own them, people are giving Microsoft the blame, which I think is the most stupid thing ever because I can't give Microsoft any credit for Hi-Fi Rush or Starfield, a publisher which they owned for 3 years. But we have to blame Microsoft for a game that they've owned for 2 weeks. I'd love it if anyone could elaborate with the logic I'm missing because they've had no hand in Call of Duty's development. In fact, Sony has because they've been marketing the thing. So why are we all of a sudden jumping to give Microsoft the blame? And look, if it's short, it's short. Call of Duty games are short, and that doesn't really bother me that much. But we all know, and all the leaks have came out over the past year and a half, this year was going to be a straight-up download expansion for Call of Duty. But Activision, Bobby Kotick, saw the dollar signs and made it a full-price title. It just is what it is. And it's going to sell millions. I think it's kind of poetic in a way where the first Call of Duty game that released after Microsoft owned them happened to be one of the lowest scoring ones. Because, we all joke about there being this Xbox exclusive tax or Xbox owned tax. And it kind of looks that way. I don't know, Logan, have you seen all of the mayhem with Call of Duty going on at the minute?
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of see both sides of it. On one hand, I'm like, isn't it interesting how the first one that's released, as soon as they're owned by Xbox, gets dinged massively, and then everybody weaponizes it and does their usual junk about it. And then on the other hand, it's like, how could you possibly, for good or bad, like if this was incredible, best Call of Duty ever, or it's complete garbage, whatever, how can you give any, credence to the idea Microsoft had a heavy hand in this? They've literally owned the company for 2 weeks. And, like, you've been hearing interviews with Blizzard and stuff. Like, literally, all they've pretty much done with the people they've acquired from ABK has been meet them and talk to them and see what's going on and saying basically we'll get back to you about plans. Like they haven't really been doing like sit down major shaping rosters and numbers and moving things around and making concrete decisions. So the idea that they somehow this ball was down the road and almost across the finish line, and you're gonna say that jump in at the very end and it's all their fault or all their success is crazy. And then it is also fitting that the last title that Activision releases, you know, basically I'll say before they were acquired because it was gonna be released, but is a money grab. Basically, I mean, it fits the Activision of old, you know, template. they rush it out there. They basically take an expansion, and they're like, you know what, the COD fan base, for lack of a better term, are kind of suckers. They're gonna buy it just like the sports fans are gonna buy FIFA, Madden, 2K every single year because that's what they do. It's a ritual for them. They gotta have it every year, and they're like, you know what? Instead of a 4 or 5 hour expansion that we could sell for maybe $30 or so as an expansion or a season pass, and then throw in zombies, maybe we can quote take it and fluff it up a little bit and stretch it just a tad and release it for a full 70 as a last ditch, cash grab before we're acquired, make the investors happy. This deal's been going on for almost 2 years. There's investor uncertainty. Let's just try to get the most money we can get at the right time for us. Just get it done, and then wash our hands of it, and it'll be Microsoft's problem going forward, and they can decide how to do things. Just like, you know, it's crazy. Like, one of the things, I'm sorry, this is going into a brief rant. Um, One of the things, like, I really hope Microsoft changes is the pricing of these older COD games.
Yeah.
Like, it is insane that Call of Duty Ghost Digital Edition,
Yeah.
like the one with everything, is still like $100. Like, this game came out 12 years ago. Like, what on earth are you thinking saying that flies today? Yes, it's always on sale for like 45 or whatever, but you can't sit here in good faith and tell me that's reasonable. That it's ridiculous, and they know it, and I hope they fix that.
Yeah, the Call of Duty prices are ridiculous. Like, why should a game... Like, I was looking at Ghosts not long ago when all the Call of Duty games went on sale, and even in the sale, I think it was like £30. And a lot of Call of Duty bundles on Xbox, and I think they might do the same on PlayStation, you'll notice that you can't get the regular version anymore. You have to get the digital deluxe version. So it's like they kind of get more money out of that way. But yeah, you're right. They have to lower the prices of them. The whole yearly model for games, like FIFA, Call of Duty, that kind of thing, the sports games, like, it is a genius idea, but it's also terrible at the same time, because like Call of Duty, you buy a brand new game every year. It comes with a campaign, zombies, multiplayer, and you invest yourself into that game for a whole year. You buy, cosmetics, you do the battle pass, you unlock all these things, right? You level up a billion times, you prestige. I don't know if prestige is still a thing, but you earn all this stuff throughout the year, and then the next November, you drop it all like a hat off a cliff and start all over again. And that's never made sense to me, because people invest so much into these like multiplayer games. So when the rumors came out about this year being a quote unquote premium expansion, I thought that's genius, because we're going to be able to carry over our cosmetics. All the maps that's been released over the past year will be integrated in the new expansion, all that stuff. So I think them being under Microsoft fully now, I think it's going to go back to it's going to be a 2-year cycle. So next year is going to be Black Ops something. I think the name leaks, but it's going to be a Black Ops title. Next year is going to be a Black Ops title, and then in 2026, there's not going to be a new title. It's going to be a premium expansion, multiplayer, zombies, campaign, and I think that will not be full price. I think that might be $40 to $50. And look, I'll remember the date of this right now. I'm saying it. I do not think in 2026 there will be a new Call of Duty title. It'll just be an expansion, which you pay for, and you get all that stuff. Because I think people are beginning to realize, and maybe been realizing for a long time, actually. I thought about this like 10 years ago. Like, we spend so many hours, like back when Call of Duty was in its prime. Like, people were playing Call of Duty every single night. Black Ops, Modern Warfare 2. And you learn all the new maps. You earn all these cosmetics and, attachments for your weapons. And then the next year they bring out a new game and you jump over. And I think in the modern age, especially, that doesn't work anymore. And I think people don't want to spend $70 to just restart everything every year. It's like FIFA. People that buy FIFA or whatever it's called now, like you are realistically paying for a roster update in a slight. Like when it comes to FIFA, they change the ball physics every year. Like if you used to, I got so good at playing FIFA '09, I was unstoppable in that game. And then when FIFA 10 came out, I couldn't aim. And I couldn't shoot properly because in FIFA, there's a little power bar underneath your character when you're shooting. Well, that changes every year with every physics model. Well, when it comes to Call of Duty, and it's the same thing, you don't want to be paying over and over and over again. I know we're ranting a bit, but this kind of goes into our next topic, and it's going to be a topic for years, and that's AI, artificial intelligence. What can I say? So Microsoft partnered up with the AI firm. Let me get the name. They partnered up with an AI firm called InWorlds to help make games, dialogue, and characters and all this stuff. And people have been freaking out. Right? And I want to get this out the way. I think AI is an amazing tool. Right? I think AI can be used as a tool without replacing workers. Right? So for thumbnails, I use AI to sharpen thumbnails. Right? Nobody's lost a job or any money. I'm just using a tool that's available. And, people post AI-generated images on Twitter. But before those AI tools existed, people were just putting PNGs over images, right? Nobody's losing out. But when it comes to games and game development, people have automatically looked at this thinking, oh, people are going to lose the jobs. In a world where there's a lot of people losing the jobs at the minute. Bungie lost a lot of people. Across the industry, people are losing the jobs. And now there's this fear that AI is going to take over people's jobs. Ubisoft has said that they are going to integrate AI into making like dialogue and stuff. We can all look at games right now and know that these games take way too long to make. Matt Booty came out earlier in the year and said, like AAA game development used to be 3, 4, 5 years. Actually, 2 to 5 years, 2 to 4 years, whatever. And now we're looking at 5 to 6 years in between sequels, basically. And that is crazy. Like, that is really crazy. Like, I use Mass Effect as a good example. Mass Effect came out in 2007. We got Mass Effect 2 in January 2010, right? And then Mass Effect 3 was debuted in December 2010. And between the game coming out and the announcement for the third game, we got multiple expansions. And then in 2012, we got Mass Effect 3. So in 5 years, we got 3 Mass Effect RPGs. And we got, 12 expansions or something, including the multiplayer stuff. That you don't see that now, right? We go years and years in between sequels. Game development became bloated because we expect photorealistic graphics. We want to see the individual pores on a character's face. We want to see through the skin, we want to see light go through people's skin like how it does in real life. And we've talked about this before. Like, I think it's getting to a point where, let's go 5 years from now, or like when 2027 or 2028, when the next lot of consoles come out, we are going to be looking at possibly 12 years in between sequels for games. Like, because people want the more, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with wanting photorealistic graphics. The hardware we have right now is capable of it. But it's every game now. Every game is aiming for photorealism. And like, I think we need to take a step back and start looking at art styles again. Because back in the 360, and I will go through my nostalgia every single time I talk about the Xbox 360. When Arkham Asylum came out, it was a technical wonder. But it was never aiming to be realistic. It took advantage of the technology at the time. They came up with an art style, and Arkham Asylum still looks good because it's not trying to be realistic. So that Arkham Asylum will always look good. A BioShock 100 years from now will still look good, but it's not photorealistic because they never tried to make it photorealistic. And I think these AI tools will just help because 5 to 6 years for a AAA game now. So let's say Perfect Dark. I'll use Fable. Let's say Fable hypothetically comes out next year. By the time we get a sequel, it's going to be 2030. Like, isn't that kind of sad? Like, I don't want to wait that long in between sequels. We've been waiting 13 years for GTA 6. And it's ridiculous. Like, Logan, I've been ranting for like 40 minutes now, it feels like, but something's got to give, right?
Yeah, like kind of just echoing, from last time. I think it's everybody expecting, the stars aligned once in a blue moon, like the prophecy has been fulfilled, lightning in a bottle, like everything all perfect all at once in all categories for every single game. It's just not gonna happen, man. It's just it or if it does happen, it takes a obscene amount of money, time, resources, manpower, dedication, chemistry in a studio to where everybody actually gets along and works on the same page. Like all these factors have to go into place to get a title like that. Like an Alan Wake 2, a Jedi Survivor, a Elden Ring, these signature magnum opus titles. Like the idea that, everything should be the same is also kind of creatively bankrupt and draining. Like, I love sequels to big franchises, but there does come a point where it's like, okay, we're running out of ideas. People like this movie, let's make a sequel. It's like, wait a minute. We wrapped this up neatly, tied it with a bow. It ended perfectly. The fan base was happy, everything was set perfectly with this, narrative, the characters, it was in a good place. Let's not, taint this and, blaspheme it and make it into some unholy abomination for money. And it feels like that has become a thing in Hollywood and in gaming industry. I love sequels, but some franchises don't need more, and then some are enduring franchises that do. That's become a problem. And then you have like we said, the technical aspects. Like, for example, Hi Fi Rush is a marvel of a game. It's creative, it's fresh, it's breathtaking. It takes music and uses it in a way that I never would have thought of before for gameplay and story and just everything tied together. And it's like Devil May Cry, anime, Guitar Hero, meta fourth wall humor, corporate structure and game development critique all in one. It's like madness, but brilliant. And then that's on one end of the spectrum. And then you have like Alan Wake, which is like Twin Peaks and Stephen King and, Resident Evil and all this other stuff mixed together. And then you have, your Forzas and all this other stuff. Like, we have room for diversity and not everything has to be the same. Like, you mentioned BioShock and Borderlands I'd throw in as well. Those are games with very unique views that are breathtaking and visually pop, and you're like, wow, I know where I'm at, and I'm really enjoying this, and this looks so good. But you would not be caught dead saying they're photorealistic at all. And frankly, photorealism in a few years is going to look way different. What we think is photorealistic today is going to look, quote, dated in a few years. It's just what always happens. But when you take these artistic approaches to games, they seem to age more gracefully. And it comes down to expectations and how much money and all this other stuff you want to put in these things. And I think as a long-winded answer, I'm fine with AI helping. What I concern about is if AI becomes a crutch and that's all the main brunt of their development. Like, take for example Obi-Wan Kenobi series, miniseries. Like James Earl Jones is about 100 now. He's up there and he's been doing voiceovers and stuff for decades. Like the fact that he did some of his lines and AI was able to tweak some of his older lines and extrapolate stuff and make fresh dialogue for Vader to keep the character going and to fit into a timeline, that doesn't bother me at all. That's a good use of AI, and that helps, and it makes sense and it's not exploitive. But the idea, like the writers industry is having an issue with, of basically you bring on all this new young talent, and then you have AI, you get their voice rights, and then you cut them loose, and then you just use AI forever to use their voices and stuff. That would be a problem. It's a gray area, but I don't think AI is the Terminator scenario as of now.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that automatically think, oh, Skynet, our jobs are going to be taken. And I think if you really look at it, depending on how advanced technology gets, that could literally take anyone's job, right? It's not just game developers, like everyone. Like in the UK, there's supermarkets that don't have staff. Like that's crazy, right? So I think people need to take a step back. It can be used as a tool. And before I continue with my point, we're about 40 minutes into the show. If you're enjoying it, please share it. YouTube is great. It's an amazing platform. But sometimes I just need help sharing stuff. Liking helps. Comment down below or in chat. It's always lovely and always appreciated. Super chats are live if you want to support the channel. Anything answered. I can't speak today. Anyway, so the tool stuff. It could be an amazing tool, and I'll use an example. So I have access to EA's press media, so I can access PNGs, logos, trailers, and all that stuff. And when I was making a video for April, 10 biggest games coming to Xbox in April, I wanted to use a picture of Cal Kestis, and I got an official image from EA of Cal Kestis. The problem was, it's terrible. It's a low resolution, and whoever took the screenshot using the debug tools or whatever clearly didn't have like the settings up or something, because it was about a 720p quality image in a 4K wrapper. Long-winded story short, I have a tool that increases the resolution of images and also puts detail back into them. It's also very good with old photos. Anyway, I used it on Cal Kestis, and he looks exactly like the character model when you play it on a console or PC. And I couldn't really pay anyone for that. Now, I wouldn't have paid anyone for sharpening tools because it's just a tool. And I think, people just need to look back and think, it's going to help people make something. It's going to help people work easier. And like when it comes to creative stuff like writing, you can tell when an AI has wrote something. It's terrible. There's no personality, no charm, and people will react to that. So when I think Ubisoft are going to start doing it with maybe the next Assassin's Creed game. Like you will notice a vast difference in the dialogue that's been written by people and by AI. And when people react to that stuff, they'll counter to it. They'll maybe stop using AI for writing and stuff. But as of now, it looks like Microsoft's going to use the technology with game development because, again, years in between sequels. Do you know how many people in the past few years have been asking me, when's the next Arkham game? I can't bloody tell you because they're making that other thing. But at the same time, it's like I know personally that there's been maybe 3 Arkham games cancelled in the past decade. And who knows, maybe we would have had some of them by now if, Warner Brothers wasn't incompetent, but also game development didn't take so long. This could also reduce the price of game development as well, because game prices are bloated. You mentioned Alan Wake. That cost $50 million. Now, it's a lot of money, but for a game of that quality and caliber, that isn't that much. Game development now is going into the $100 to $200 million. You look at GTA 6, there's rumors that cost $1 billion to make, although that's going to include marketing. But at the same time, game development's bloated. Marketing also goes towards that. But I just think people, if you go back on 360, and like I said, Borderlands, you said Borderlands, I said Bioshock, Arkham Asylum is a good example. Those games still look good. But if you look back at early Xbox One, PlayStation 4 games, mainly like a lot of third-party ones, they're aiming for this photorealistic style, but they don't look good still. They looked good then, but now not so much. But those games from 360 still look good. Why is that? Because they weren't trying to be realistic. And like you're going to have your Hellblade 2, in like the next Forza and stuff, and the next God of War, which are obviously going to be photorealistic. But do we really need a photorealistic new Arkham game? Because Arkham Knight, great graphics, it's not photorealistic. It wouldn't bother me if we got another Arkham game with those exact graphics, obviously, at a higher resolution and 60 frames. But yeah, it's just something I wanted to talk about because the past 6 months or so, people are talking about AI a lot. I've been tagged a lot the past 24 hours about AI. It's not the monster. It's just a tool. That's all it is. And if it does ever start replacing workers, that's when we start making it an issue. But as of now, it's people being overreactive, if that's a word. Anyway, we'll move on because the AI talk, not going to lie, it bores me a little bit. Anyway, my God, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. You know what? Should we talk about Mass Effect now? Let's talk about Mass Effect. Logan, did you see the teaser trailer at all?
Yes, I did. Mysterious feminine figure walking through a dark little hallway, menacingly with a handgun and nice black and red N7 armor, haunting music and a cyberpunk skyscape. Yeah, it got my attention.
Yeah, so like little backstory, I'm kind of obsessed with Mass Effect. For people that might not, yeah,
No,
yeah, slightly,
really,
yeah. I adore that universe. Like when Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic came out, I loved that game, and when I saw Mass Effect debuted for the first time, I kind of did a double take. I was like, "What's this?" Because I love sci-fi. I love Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate. And like I just love these new different sci-fi universes, and Mass Effect is very different. Very different. And that game comes out in 2007, and I was in love with that franchise. Absolutely in love. There's been nothing like it since. And in 5 years, I got 3 games, amazing expansions, a multiplayer mode that was great, and just all these memorable characters. And I think when it comes to BioWare and BioWare fans, like we know Mass Effect for its characters. Right? There are no characters, in my opinion, in all of RPGs, that are like their characters. Liara, Miranda, Garrus, my boy Garrus, my bro. Rex, Grunt. I could go on all day. Mordin Solus, Thane Krios. All those characters are beloved, outside of Gaiden, but all those characters are loved.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah, and Kai Lang, who he can stay dead. People love those characters and that world. It's like Mass Effect is very much inspired visually by late 70s, early 80s sci-fi art. So if you go to a library, if they still exist, and look at like old sci-fi books, that sci-fi style will look kind of familiar. And just the characters, the world, everything about it, the fact that they interconnected these choices across 3 games was extremely ambitious for the time. And like, I'm not going to talk about Mass Effect 3's ending much because for me, each game was the journey. And in a lot of ways, Mass Effect 3 actually does the best way of storytelling in a lot of ways, which I'll elaborate at another point. My point is that Mass Effect fans have been through the ringer, right? Mass Effect 3 came out in 2012, early 2012. The ending fiasco happened. I'm not going to get into it. We got the extended cut, then the multiplayer stuff came out, which is bloody great. And fans were wondering what's next. What's next for Mass Effect? And I was like on Twitter all the time asking when, why, how. And we finally get a teaser trailer for Mass Effect Andromeda. And I hyped that thing up. I think I did 50% of the marketing for that game, all on Twitter alone. And I was so excited. And I played the game, and people were split. Some people loved it. Most people didn't like it. It was very much a Marmite game, right? People either loved it or hated it. And I was like posting screenshots all the time, loving the game. And then after the game comes out, I stopped playing. I finished it, and I realized about a week after the game, right after I finished it, I should say, a week after, I thought that game wasn't good. And I've just like ever since I've came up with this long list of reasons of why I don't like Andromeda. And I know some stuff about the development of Andromeda, which I can't talk about, but like really, really messed up stuff. And, Andromeda was this thing that it split the fan base. and fans just argued all the time about it. I don't talk about Mass Effect Andromeda. If people enjoy the game, I let them enjoy it. But when I talk about Mass Effect on Twitter, on YouTube, I don't talk about Andromeda, because if someone enjoys it, I'm not going to hate on it. Let them enjoy it. Outside of that, I think the game is actually terrible in a lot of ways. Has some redeeming qualities, but anyway, where am I going with this? So, about a month and a half after Mass Effect Andromeda came out, I may have mentioned this on the channel, but I want to mention it again just for posterity or whatever. About a month and a half after Andromeda came out, and after I finished it, on my birthday, I'm still salty about this, by the way. On my birthday, I'm in a pub with my mates, celebrating my birthday, and I open up my phone and I say, Mass Effect, due to critical and commercial failure, Mass Effect as a franchise is going into quote-unquote hiatus. And that just ruined my day. I was horrified. Thankfully I was in a pub. They had plenty of alcohol. But, like, that was an awful day for me. Awful day. It was like getting coal on Christmas and then getting kicked in the nads. It was horrible. So I kind of just, at that point, gave up on Mass Effect ever coming back. I never thought it would. And then I heard rumblings about a year before Legendary Edition came out that they are working on a remaster. Well, as you know, the game got announced. It came out. It's perfection, right? That is how you do a remaster. It was pure fan service. They fixed all the bugs. They gave Mass Effect 1 a complete overhaul. Mass Effect 2's bugs gone. Cleaned up a lot of graphical errors and stuff. Mass Effect 3, I'd argue to say that is a perfect port of a game. Like, not a single issue at all. Fun fact, during Mass Effect 3, I had this bug where when you went to talk to someone, Commander Shepard would turn his face to the left. So whenever the camera would pan to him and he's talking at a dramatic moment, you just see the side of his face. And I hated that so much. Anyway, the reception from Mass Effect Legendary Edition was extremely high. Like, I know for a fact from people at EA, like, they were happy with the sales. It's a critical commercial success. It got fans back into Mass Effect as a franchise because book sales went down, comic sales went down, merchandise sales went down, but Legendary Edition kind of lit the fire again. It gave people hope for Legendary Edition or Mass Effect as a franchise. Anyway, we got a teaser trailer for a new Mass Effect game at the Game Awards, I think 3 years ago, and it shows the Milky Way. Camera zooms in. There's some stuff which I'm saving for a video, but it pretty much points to it being Mass Effect 4. You know, Shepard and all that stuff. Well, about, I want to say a year ago, after that trailer came out, BioWare came out and put this lithograph in the store, just from like some of the artwork from the new game, which isn't really a big deal. However, I think whoever made it messed up because it actually had the description for the new game. So I'll go over it right here. And by the way, BioWare's tried to pull this down from everywhere on the internet. You can still find it somewhere, but anyway, this is the light description of the next Mass Effect game. Shepard's final quest may have ended the threat of the Reapers, but at great cost, including Earth itself. While Shepard and the survivors are left to pick up the pieces. Now, that alone, that's Mass Effect 4. So I will not refer to this game as Mass Effect 5 under any circumstance. People have already talked about on like Twitter, why am I keep calling it Mass Effect 4? It's Mass Effect 4. We call it Mass Effect 4. I don't care if they said ellipse or whatever, and it's like that's Greek for 5. No, Mass Effect 4. The Return of Shep. That's what I'm calling it. Anyway, we got a new teaser trailer today, and I was glued online. I had the browser open for hours. They were doing this sort of cryptic thing about deciphering codes and stuff. Long story short, we get a video of I assume soldier in N7 gear, new N7 gear by the way, and it looks cool. I never thought an N7 trench coat would be a thing, but here we are, and it looks good. It looked like it was a female Shepard in my opinion, or female, should I say, and it looks good, right? I love the armor, the way they set it. I think I know where that trailer took place, but again, I'm saving that for content. But it looks like we're going back to the Milky Way. I'm 102% sure that that's Commander Shepard, right? People have discovered that there's a Krogan in the background of the beginning If you zoom in the bottom left corner, there's a Krogan leaning against a wall. There's a brand new art piece, which I think they're going to have on sale tomorrow at the BioWare store, which is basically a poster of the main character. And inside the main character's coat itself, it shows a picture in a bar where there's a Geth. Well, if you played Mass Effect 3, and if you played it correctly, there are no Geth anymore. So, yeah. And then they put out some artwork last year, which was blatantly a Geth. It was a picture of a crater from above, but it was a Geth. It was a Geth. And even look, this game is years away. I came to the conclusion that it might be 2027 when we get this game. But I'm a realist. Whatever. But the fact that we got a trailer today surprised me because I expected to maybe get a teaser trailer in 2026 or late 2025. But this tells me maybe they are further along than we think because we know Dragon Age Dreadwolf is coming out next year. They still need to bloody show the thing, by the way. Some development work has started on Mass Effect 4. So, and by the way, they switched back to Unreal Engine, the tools the developers actually liked using over there. But the big part is that, as rumors suggest, it's gone back to a hub world game style. So it's not open world. You're not having these open areas where you have all this repetitive content like Andromeda, where in Mass Effect 2 and 3 and mostly 1, you have these bespoke areas made for quests. There's places in Mass Effect 2 and 3 where these whole areas are completely built for a side quest and you never go there again. And like that is what I call good game design because it fits each narrative of each quest. Whereas when you're playing in an open environment, you just, everything just happens to take place in this one open space. Congratulations, lazy. But all signs are pointing at this being the game people want Mass Effect to be. Now, Logan, I've been rambling for what seems like a century because I need a drink. What's your thoughts on all the whole Mass Effect coming back thing, today's trailer? What are you wanting from the franchise and all that stuff?
Yeah, I was super stoked from the trailer, and like you, I think that's either Fem Shep or it's Liara. I'm leaning towards Fem Shep, and I think it's on Omega would be my guess because of all the cyberpunky stuff, but could be wrong. But looks awesome. And like you, I'm gonna consider that Mass Effect 4. We don't need to talk about that other one that
Yep.
happened. Um, it, man, it just makes me so mad because there was so much potential in that one, and I like the idea of it of different galaxy and different characters and stuff. If they had actually done what they said they were going to do, but the fact that there's a whole major brief thing, like besides all the technical problems the game had, which it had many, and the whole gameplay changes of making it, take part of this fad of everything has to be bloated open world. But even taking that aside, like if they had put in the actual story stuff that they didn't, that was supposed to be in there, I think it would have been a lot better. But, deciding to pull a Disney and have Palpatine has somehow returned with a message in Fortnite, basically, but putting Mass Effect stuff and comics and other stuff to give you the story instead of putting it in the bloody game itself. Like, all that nonsense just really didn't set well with me. I'm glad the trilogy remastered collection has been incredible. It's on sale right now, by the way. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink for Mass Effect Day. And I can't wait for the fourth one. I am curious to see if there are, quote, some retcons, maybe, because of, without getting too spoilery, I mean, it's been years since the trilogy, but in
Yeah, yeah.
case for some reason someone hasn't beaten it, There are, as you could guess, multiple different endings depending on decisions you made. So I am curious what they will decide to be, quote, canon. And whatever they consider to be canon, it would be interesting because the end, basically involving Shepard in the main story would imply some things that kind of almost contradict some things. But I'm sure they'll find a way to make it work. Kind of, like Obi-Wan would say, it was true from a certain point of view. So I am really curious to see how they're going to handle that.
Yeah, before we continue, I'll just mention what Mike Gamble mentioned in the blog post which went live today. He says, "What happened to everyone you know and love in the other games? Who really died?" Which really sticks out to me. Who really died? Because if you finish Mass Effect 3 and use the Destroy ending, you know that the Geth aren't really a thing anymore.
Buddy.
Yeah, Edie's not alive anymore. So I'm guessing they pointed at that. Anyway, the post continues to say, "Who had kids with whom? What does a baby Volus actually sound like? What about all the galaxies?" That part, I'm not gonna lie, triggered me. Stop mentioning that. What the heck is going on with the Asari scientist that turned Shadow Broker? And what about? I'm leaning towards like it's blatantly going to be Mass Effect 4. With last year's teaser, it was kind of Mass Effect 4. So like, I put it like this: if you have a trilogy of games that's beloved, and people like just talk about it, love it, all that stuff, why would you make a follow-up to a game that almost tanked the franchise? Like that doesn't really make sense to me. And this isn't meant to be a hating Andromeda fest. Like I've gave my opinion about that game. People want to enjoy it, cool. Me, no. Like when my favorite thing from a game is a font, that's a bad thing. But I think people should be really happy for this because like I've seen people say on Twitter like, why are people hyped about this CGI character of someone walking across a floor and then turning around and putting a gun up? Like it's not. People aren't excited about that. People are excited at the prospect of the franchise coming back to form. You mentioned the comics and stuff. There is a lot of good Mass Effect comics. I'd say it's not necessary stuff you need to know. You don't need to play. You don't need to read the comics to understand Mass Effect 3 and all that stuff. So I think they segment that properly when it comes to Mass Effect. But like, it's a big day for Mass Effect. Again, I went into today thinking just concept art. We got some concept art last year, which they were pretty vague about, which looked like a brand new relay being made by humans. So, I mean, look, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope this game comes out sooner than later because, man, it's been too long since the trilogy. Like 2012, that's a long time ago. And I love the idea of playing as Shepard again. I really do. Like you said, Legendary Edition is on sale. Even though it's in Game Pass Ultimate and EA Play, I recommend people buy it. It is incredible. And by the way, EA does not pay me for what I talk about when it comes to Mass Effect at all. I wish I did because I'd be bloody rich. But yeah, Mass Effect, it's a good day to be fans because I think when it comes to all sci-fi genres and like properties, shall I say, like there's a thing that comes out that splits the fan base. Star Wars happened with Star Wars. Star Trek, I'd argue to say is the more split fan base because the different universes they have, different timelines. People have blocked me on Twitter simply because I said I liked Star Trek Discovery Season 1. Like people are so split on Star Trek. Stargate Universe, people were split. Man, Stargate, that really got to people. Stargate Atlantis came out, and people were triggered, saying it's too light, even though it has the darker storylines. Stargate Universe comes out, and it's more like Battlestar Galactica, and then when it gets cancelled, people complain. This is a gaming podcast, by the way. I'm just ranting about sci-fi. But Mass Effect Andromeda just split the fan base. There's some people that are still angry about 3, and if they are, I apologize that you can't get over it. But it's an excellent game. And what can I say? It's a good time to be a Mass Effect fan because as of right now, it looks like things are going to be going in the right direction. I will say this, though. If they shown off a teaser this early, maybe they have something for the Game Awards. because it's just around the corner. It's about a month away. And I don't know, I think that it would be something that would be like a big thing to show off at the Game Awards. Logan, do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I think they could show something, but I still think it's a little ways off. And maybe, just maybe, they're trying to get more attention onto Mass Effect to kind of mask a little bit the uncertainty that's going on with Dragon Age right now. Because that sounds like a mess right now. But it wouldn't shock me if they showed something, but I don't know. To me, I still think it's a ways out.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm just being hopeful, right? I would love it if they come out with a trailer and say, "Hey, surprise! It's out next year." I know it's not going to happen, but there's that tiny part of my brain going, "But what if?" It's not, but what if? You know, um, it's just a good time, and Dragon Age. That's the biggest elephant in the room because like full development starts when that comes out, and we don't know anything. They've rebooted that game 3 times. It thankfully has no live service elements anymore. It's fully single player. And we haven't seen a single frame of that game. And it's coming out apparently in the next 6 months. I'm like kind of speechless. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a massive red flag.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I want Dragon Age to be great because the Dragon Age has a huge fan base and they've been waiting so long. Like Dragon Age Inquisition came out in 2014. That's crazy, and that was a cross generation game if you think about it. So like, I'm guessing one way or another we're going to find out something at the Game Awards. We're either going to get a full on teaser trailer for Mass Effect, hopeful, or we're going to get a full-on reveal trailer and announcement for the release date of Dragon Age. Because again, we've seen some behind-the-scenes stuff, some concept art. They've even showed off. It's going to have action-based combat apparently, so more like a Witcher or Dark Souls or whatever. And it's a good time. It's a good time to be a BioWare fan. Unless things change, I'm happy. I'm pretty happy at the minute. Granted, the mention of Andromeda in those posts, it got to me. But I put it like this: I was so nervous today. I almost threw up. I talked about this before the show with Logan. Like, I was so nervous when I saw that countdown, I almost puked. Over a bloody video game announcement of someone walking across the floor. Anyway, Mass Effect. Good time to be back as a fan. And yeah, what can I say? It's good to see BioWare. It looks like they're going in the right direction. And if you're a fan of Casey Hudson, like one of the creators of Mass Effect, it looks like he's working on a brand new third-person shooter sci-fi RPG at Humanoid Studios. So that's going to be one to watch. I think if you're a BioWare fan, you're going to have to keep a close eye on that game as well. It looks very, it looks like it's probably going to be Mass Effect. And you know what? If it's going to copy Mass Effect, I don't care. I'm going to buy it. I've been telling developers for years, just copy Mass Effect. Give me my third-person shooter sci-fi RPG with connected choices, right? I'm bloody sick of having to just have Mass Effect to go through. Give me some more. I want Mass Effect clones, but I don't have any. It's ridiculous. Anyway, we'll move on. We've got a lot to cover still. You know what? You mentioned the Game Awards, and I think I mentioned the Game Awards. The Game Awards is just around the corner. I think all the nominations are going to be revealed on the 13th, I believe. And you mentioned before the show, Logan, you want to talk about that. You think that they should add a new category?
Yeah, I think remake remaster would be a good category to add. Like, I don't know, it's kind of been a debate I've seen on the timeline the past few days, and I thought it was worth bringing up on the show. Is like the idea of like, all right, this game is incredible and it's one of the best games of the year, but in essence it's really a game from 98 that got upscaled and modernized. Like, should we, put that in position to, compete against, brand new games like Hi-Fi Rush or Alan Wake 2 or Jedi Survivor or, Hogwarts Legacy, whatever? Or should it, be in its own category, or should it be in both? It's just, I don't know. I just think it would be a worthwhile category to add, especially this year, because you have Dead Space remake, you have Resident Evil 4 remake, you have Alone in the Dark remake, which is coming out in January. You have Super Mario RPG remake. You've got all these remakes and remasters and everything, and it's like at a certain point, it's like I think you should acknowledge them and praise them for how incredible they are and wonderful they are, but at the same time, not like I don't know, detract from some of the other stuff going on as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that, like, there's a lot of people that get sick of remasters and remakes, but yet they have to be acknowledged as well. So, like, Dead Space remake, we've talked about this on the show. I made videos about it. Like, I think Dead Space remake is incredible. If you haven't played it, please play it. They did so much to that game. They took a game that was great and made it better, which is something that's rare. And it's a quintessential, must-play sci-fi game. And I was looking at that game thinking, like, that is one of the best games of the year, but do you put it in the same category as other main, like Alan Wake and all those other titles, which we're going to talk about in a bit? I don't think they should, you know? They should get their own category. And why not? Like, every year we get a bunch of remasters now and a bunch of remakes. I think it's about time they get their own category. Because let's say hypothetically Dead Space remake wins Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Would it be a bad thing? Not really, but at the same time, it's like people should be. I think people want to celebrate newer titles as well. So, like, I don't know. Like, I'll be wondering, anyone in chat, like, do you think they should like have their own category? Because like people loved Dead Space remake. People are loving what do you call it? Metroid Prime remaster or remake. I think it's a remaster, and like there's been a bunch of good remasters, and I think that maybe just lumping them together as like one, along with like Alan Wake, Starfield, all that stuff, like it's maybe not the best choice. And when it comes to the Game Awards, and by the way, I hate the fact that we all talk about, and I do it as well. We all talk about the Game Awards being the Game Awards ceremony. Like, there's more than one place that gives away awards. I always look forward to the BAFTA Game Awards, which is in March, and like that's very good. It's a black tie event. There's no trailers. It's purely awards, and like I think like IGN do their own Game of the Year, GameSpot, all that stuff. I'm gonna do my own Game of the Year.
Ice Awards.
Yeah, and I think the Game Awards is just one, right? So whenever people say, "Oh, this game's not going to get Game of the Year," they talk about the Game Awards because it's this big televised event that people. Let's face it, people watch for the trailers. We all know this, and at the end of the day, it is what it is. Logan, I want to ask you, who do you think will be nominated for Game of the Year? Not win, but nominated.
Well, it's a tough question. It depends on how many nominees there are this year. If there's 5 or I think there should be 10 this year, honestly, but if I was to guess, I would say that it will be Baldur's Gate, Tears of the Kingdom, Alan Wake 2, let's see. This is really tough.
I think
Hi-Fi Rush,
yeah.
and then there's usually one indie that gets thrown in there, even if it feels a little like head scratching, like Stray. Like they threw in Stray as like a token indie last year. This is not shade against Stray at all. It's a good game. But it's kind of like, are you really going to tell me with a straight face Stray is in the same breadth category as these other ones? Like, come on now. Like, I would expect some indie probably as the 5th one.
Yeah, I agree with that list. I think Sea of Stars is going to be up there. Like that.
Oh, yes. Brilliant game.
Yeah, great game. I always think it's odd because, like, you have a game like, I'm just going to use Sea of Stars as an example. Like, if that game comes out and wins Game of the Year, but doesn't win Best Indie Game of the Year. Like, what does that even mean? Like, that has happened before. I think Vampire Survivors maybe won last year or something. A indie game won one time, and it didn't win Indie Game of the Year. That's what I'm saying. I think Spider-Man's going to get thrown there because, like, I do
I
think,
completely forgot about
yeah,
Spider-Man.
I do
Yeah.
think like people will just forget about the bugs, forget that. Like, people have told me that I've played it, they think the first one's better. I can't say anything about it, like, opinion wise, but my thought on the game is because I haven't played it. But I think Jeff Keighley's going to throw it in there, because why not? I do think Jedi Survivor is going to get snubbed to hell. That Which is heartbreaking. It's again right now. It's my game of the year, but I know for a fact that's not going to get nominated. It just isn't. Maybe for best action game. Hogwarts Legacy is actually the best selling game of the year so far. That's not going to get nominated for anything at all. At all. It's been blamed for the wrong reasons by the wrong people. The developers have done an amazing job with that game, and it's not going to get nominated. I think Hi-Fi Rush is going to get snubbed as well, just because I think games that release early in the year just don't get nominated much. Like, people just kind of forget about it. Baldur's Gate 3, I think it's going to be torn between two games. By the way, I would love Starfield to get nominated, but I think there's been so much hatred behind that game that it doesn't stand a chance, right?
I'm almost convinced that game is not going to do well at the awards, like even in some other categories.
Yeah, I put it like this. I think Starfield has a chance of being my game of the year. Again, haven't finished it yet, but like, if you look at Bethesda RPGs, people love them. People play them for years on end. People still make content about Oblivion and Skyrim because people watch it. People love those games. And it just so happens that Starfield comes out, and there's this massive wave of hate, right? Every day and I highly recommend people follow me and Logan on Twitter. Like, I always post clips and stuff. Like, every single time I post something about Starfield, immediate hate. Every single post. If I posted a video of me walking on the moon, it's a boring game. There's nothing to do. If I post a video of me, going into a base and shooting enemies, I get less hate posts, but people still say it's mid. And like, multiple people have told me, I'm not even kidding. Multiple people have told me that they will not post about Starfield because they get crap. And isn't that sad that people want to post their enjoyment of a video game and they just can't or won't because the people with the pitchforks and stuff, like, that's sad, man. It's this brand new IP in a world where we get sequels all the time, and like, look, Tears of the Kingdom, I'm sure that's an amazing game. I've heard great things about it. Spider-Man, I'm sure that's a great game, but like, those games reuse areas, and you have this brand new game. And some places, some review outlets gave it a low score because they got their review code late. Like, that's crap. And I think there's one review outlet that actually gave Starfield a low score because, quote unquote, Microsoft didn't put many games out during the year. Like, that's corrupt as hell, by the way. And I don't know. I think like Starfield's just going to get snubbed. It really is. It doesn't stand a chance of not. I don't even think it'll be nominated. So I think it's going to be a toss-up between Alan Wake 2 and Baldur's Gate 3. Like, Baldur's Gate 3, I think, is the safest win to pick. If you can bet on the Game Awards, by the way, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to win. But now that Alan Wake, now that Alan Wake 2 is out and people are going on about that game, like, it's tough. But like, I think this year we're going to see a lot of snubs. Like Star Wars. Jedi Survivor is going to get bit by the Snubosaurus Rex once again, and it's kind of sad. I adore that game. Like, Logan, we've talked about that game many times. Like, Jedi Survivor, in my opinion, is the best Star Wars game ever made.
It's incredible. It's in my favorite games ever, and like, I think probably the best, most sound Star Wars game ever made. It's incredible. I love it, and just like its predecessor, I do think it'll get snubbed because of reasons that don't seem particularly fair, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and when it comes to reviews in general, some games get docked points for bugs, and some games don't. Just putting it out there, that's
Yeah,
corrupt
it's
as
funny
hell.
how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but yeah, I think I think whoever wins this year, like, I don't think there's going to be much like arguing. Like sometimes, like when Elden Ring won last year, I was like, obviously, Elden Ring, masterpiece of a game. I gave it 10 out of 10, and when that won, I was like, okay, that seemed like the obvious one that was going to win, and people were angry. But I think this year, again, I think it's going to be a toss up between Alan Wake and Baldur's Gate 3 mainly. And I think, whoever wins, people will be happy. But yeah, I think this year, more than any year, we're going to see more snubs than we've ever seen before. Ever seen. And yeah, Starfield, Hi-Fi Rush, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Um, I think the Mario Wonder's probably going to get highly rated as well, or nominated a lot. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the other categories outside of Game of the Year. So, like, best action game, best horror game. Like, who the hell's going to win best horror game? It's been a good year for horror games. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it's the 13th of November. All that stuff's going to be announced. But yeah. Anyway, we have a crap ton still to talk about. If you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out when the algorithm's not doing its thing and all that stuff. And Super Chats are live if you want to support the channel and all that stuff. So, Logan, something just went live while I was talking. I think we're going to want to talk about this. Let me try and find it because my phone, for some reason, won't refresh. Here we go. So, this is from PC Gamer. StarCraft could return, according to Blizzard, but not necessarily as an RTS.
Oh yeah, that was in a Bloomberg interview with Jason Schreier yesterday.
Yeah, so, but I don't keep up with Bloomberg because why would I? But that's music to my ears because I've been saying for the past 20 plus months that, look, I port beg games all the time. Admittedly, right? I've port begged a lot of JRPGs that have ended up coming to Xbox. Was it because of me? That's debatable. But I've been port begging or IP begging a third person shooter StarCraft game. StarCraft. And like I think it's an obvious one, right? You take StarCraft, it has Space Marines, it has aliens. The answer's right there. It essentially writes itself. And then you have the Coalition, who no third-person combat, and you have these people walking around in these massive mech suits, weighty mech suits. I'm just saying it's kind of obvious. And anyway, Mikey Barr did an interview yesterday talking about the future of Blizzard under Xbox. There's more creative freedom now than what they had before with, Bobby Kotick just running the whole thing. And the interesting part is that Mikey Barr said that now that they're under Microsoft, they could potentially make single-player games without any live service elements. Now, if you've been a fan of Blizzard, you know that isn't their forte, right? It's all multiplayer. It's all online stuff. So to me, this is music to my ears. I mainly play single-player games. I don't give a crap about multiplayer. I'm a casual Diablo fan, right? I don't do any of that seasonal crap. Like, I'm story-focused. Story this, story that. For pretty much everything. And that was music to my ears. And I think, when they were buying Activision Blizzard, there was all this fear-mongering, like, oh, they're going to change them up too much. But as Phil said in the past, like, he lets the studios do what they want. People like to hate on Rare all the time because apparently Microsoft ruined them. However, Sea of Thieves is unbelievably successful. A lot of people play that game every day. It's been out for 6 years? 7 years, and it still gets expansions. It's it's always popular on Steam, and I always see people playing it on Xbox. And the truth is, whether people like it or not, Sea of Thieves is a huge success. That's why Rare still work on it, and Microsoft just let them do that. Microsoft let them do Kinect Sports because they wanted to. It wasn't because of Microsoft. They wanted to do Sea of Thieves because Microsoft let them. And I think when it comes to Blizzard, we're just going to see more creative freedom. Like we talked about earlier in the show, they have like 45,000 studios making Call of Duty maps. Well, isn't that sad that you have the developers of the Transformers games, of Tony Hawk games, making Call of Duty maps, but now with things being moved around a lot, and Mike Ribara mentioned the whole like single player centric game. Like I never thought I'd hear single player and Blizzard in the same sentence. It never even occurred to me really. But it looks like that's actually going to happen. Logan, I've been rambling. What do you think? Because it looks like there's going to be a lot of good stuff in the future.
Yeah, all those interviews are music to my ears. Like, read usually when you see a short Schreier article come out, it's an expose that unveils some stuff that is kind of like, well, that's not good, and it's bad or dark news for a studio or a thing. But this was actually a very very positive piece about Blizzard and Xbox, and quotes from Yabara and others at the company basically saying that the plan looks like for Blizzard to be basically itself again, just like Blizzard, not have to report to Activision and run up the chain of command, like to Bobby and all this other stuff. Like basically, like Phil is gonna let them do what they want and do things how they want, and check in with Phil every once in a while. But basically, Blizzard is going to be solely Blizzard again. It's not going to be ABK. It seems like Activision Blizzard King is getting kind of split off. And Activision is going to do all their stuff, Blizzard's going to do their stuff, and King is going to do their stuff. And the fact that he mentioned single player games is awesome. I'm all about that. Like you, I want a StarCraft shooter, or I still am sad to this day about StarCraft Ghost.
Yeah.
It and Star Wars 1313 are two of the biggest, makes me the most upset cancels ever, and I really want that game or something similar. Just please, you know, make expansions, make, revivals, do solo games, spin-offs, whatever. I'm just thrilled. And the fact that they even said that they're thinking about bringing WoW to console, and they've been thinking about it a while, and they're like, we are part of Microsoft now. It would be dumb of us not to basically consider it strongly. To me, I think that's code for it will happen. It might not be immediately, but within a few years, I think WoW's going to be on Xbox.
Yeah, and along with all the Blizzard stuff, BlizzCon 2023 happened, and people have seemed fairly happy from the show. They announced a bunch of stuff coming to World of Warcraft Classic, and then they announced 3 expansions for World of Warcraft, and people lost their minds. They put out a new cinematic, which I'm not going to lie, I thought was like real life. I thought it was live actors.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and the creator of those cinematics said he wanted to work on Gears. So, like, that was music to my ears, and that's what I'm talking about. The collaboration, like, is potentially endless. But World of Warcraft, I think that's a big, that's an obvious thing they should do for consoles, because it already has controller support. Apparently, there's action-based combat which you can select, and there's like millions of players that would play that on console. That we already have MMOs on console, which are big. Elder Scrolls Online, big on console. Final Fantasy 14, huge on PlayStation. It's also coming to Xbox. Star Trek Online. There's a bunch of others. Neverwinter. And I think that World of Warcraft, like, whether it has its down years or whatever, it still prints money. It's the biggest MMO. And I think it coming to Xbox. I actually think it would be on PlayStation as well. Because of the controller support, people even found bindings for like PlayStation buttons and stuff. Even though that is for PC, I just think WoW being what it is would be multi-platform. That being said, you could say with it being that big, they could make it exclusive. So it goes either way. But yeah, I think that this is a good look, because Blizzard, they've had a rough few years. Publicly, we've all seen the things that's been going behind the scenes with various people and stuff, which isn't good. And like Blizzard, they had a good BlizzCon. There was no bad announcement. People seem excited for the brand new expansion for Diablo, which comes out late 2024. It's going to be a huge expansion with a new class which they've never done before, like the new style of class they're doing. So good announcements. There was nothing announced for Xbox. I watched that Blizzard event, and there was nothing there. If you play games on console outside of Diablo, there was nothing there. They didn't announce.
Overwatch.
Yeah, there
That's
was.
about
Oh,
it.
yeah, Overwatch. You know what? I actually forget that Overwatch exists because I don't play shooters much. And I'm aware Overwatch is absolutely huge. But there's new content for games coming. But outside of new games for Xbox, there wasn't anything there. But if they're gonna make a single player StarCraft game, I would bet my right arm they would put that on console. Like a third person shooter StarCraft game, that's gonna sell. And I think Microsoft has this, and I've talked about this before. Microsoft, for the first time ever, have a roadmap. They've never had one before because they had so few studios. They either had a few games in development, or they had second party working on games, or they secured third party content. And Microsoft they've never had a roadmap. They've had maybe a release date for some upcoming titles, but Microsoft has never had a roadmap like they have now. There's games coming out in 2024 that we know of. There's games coming out next year that we know are going to be announced, which haven't been yet. There's games coming out after 2024, which we know about. So for the first time ever, Microsoft has this announcement lineup, or I should say roadmap, which we've never had before. And that's why, as an Xbox fan, and that's why I'm always so positive, by the way, Xbox fans have a reason to be positive because there's so much content coming. And as a content creator, like, I love the fact that I have tons of different games to cover. Like, it's kind of stupid how many different games I have to cover. Like, look at Clockwork Revolution. It hit the Steam page store not long ago, and now people are noticing that I, in exile, should say, keep posting that, hey, you can put it in your wish list or whatever on Steam. It's like they're doing that for a reason. By the way, I'm still convinced that game comes out late next year. Just putting it out there. But like, Microsoft's in a good place, and plus all of the whole Blizzard stuff and Activision stuff that's going to come in the future, I think people are going to be happy. I really do. And as we talked about all the Microsoft stuff, Phil Spencer did an interview where he was talking about how, weirdly enough, Xbox for the first time ever outsold PlayStation. I did not see that coming. The thing is, people say not by much, and it wasn't by much. I think it was only by a few hundred. But at the same time, it kind of makes you think, Starfield did technically move the needle in Japan. But he said that, subscriptions are up, console sales are up. Now, to me and you, and to everyone listening, you might think, well, what does that mean to you? It means nothing. The more consoles are sold in Japan, the better it looks to put Japanese games on the hardware. And they're working harder with Square Enix. Square Enix has said they've made a commitment to Xbox to put more, specifically Final Fantasy titles, on the platform. So, like, even on the Japan front, and if you're a fan of JRPGs, it looks like we're going to start seeing more. Like, Logan, you saw the interview. What do you think? Because, like, on the Japanese side, things are looking good.
Yeah, and like you said, even if they're quote titles that don't interest some people like us or listeners, the fact that they're selling more and more consoles over there means it's more of a viable platform for these developers to put games on there. So it's a massive win. Just keep those numbers up. They said that, I think, PC Game Pass quadrupled in Japan, something like that, which is absurd. And it's really taken off. And like, once, especially next year, once you add those Blizzard and Activision titles into Game Pass, I expect those numbers to go astronomical. Like, we've talked about how big StarCraft is in Korea, for example, but it's like a national sport. But some of these titles have particular regions of the world they're really locked in on, and I think it's awesome, and I'm glad them and Square are finally patching things up. And acquisitions wasn't a topic, but like, I think their next thing at some point is either to get those, Crystal and Eidos from Embracer, which is absolutely falling on its face, rolling off a cliff into a pit of spikes. Like, it's terrible right now what's going on with Embracer, and their COO just left, and like I think either acquiring those two studios or something in Japan would be their next move whenever they are ready to.
Yeah, we weren't going to talk about acquisitions, but we may as well mention it because like Embracer, when they got the stuff from Square Enix, the studios and the IP, everyone was saying like 300 million was a steal for like them studios plus all the IP. Like the Tomb Raider IP alone, I would think would be worth double that. And like Embracer got a steal, but like they are bleeding money at the minute. They have like 80 studios or something, and like when that Saudi deal fell through, they went into panic mode. They clearly into selling stuff off now. Now that the Activision thing is done, it wouldn't surprise me, and we've been talking about this since the whole thing happened. Like, it wouldn't surprise me that if in the next 3 months, you know what, I'll say by March. It wouldn't surprise me if by March, Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics both go to Microsoft, because those are essentially the biggest games which can get the most money for from Microsoft for Embracer. I can't speak today. Sorry, Embracer. They need money fast because their overhead must be outrageous for all those studios. In their games, look, I always talk about Embracer and Focus Entertainment when it comes to like if you want to buy a game that doesn't have microtransactions and it's different, support those publishers. And unfortunately, like Embracer doesn't have a big game they come out with every year. They don't have a big game that has microtransactions. Like, so I honestly have no idea how they make that much money. Evidently, they don't because they selling stuff off. And then you look at Eidos Montreal. They are working on Fable. Seems a bit obvious that they would go over. Crystal Dynamics is working on Perfect Dark. And when it comes to Microsoft, I still think they need more third-person action-adventure games. Like, they've got RPGs in the bag. They've got racing games in the bag. They might be coming out with another Killer Instinct at some point. But, like, when it comes to action-adventure specific titles, like maybe a Tomb Raider would be good for Microsoft. They're already working on a new Tomb Raider game with Amazon. So it wouldn't surprise me if that happens. Again, I think by March. So like on that front, it wouldn't surprise me. I think there would be good pickups. And those are like Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics are some of my favorite studios. Like they've made some incredible games in the past. Deus Ex alone is incredible. You know, Tomb Raider as an IP. I talk about Soul Reaver a lot in the Legacy of Kain, shall I say. They would just make sense. And now that the whole FTC is off their backs, they could pretty much pick up developers without anyone looking. Because when the whole like FTC and CMA were investigating Microsoft, like in the background, Sony bought like 8 studios and nobody looked into it. So it can clearly happen. I just don't think we're going to see a publisher being bought anytime soon. We do need to see the Japanese front from Microsoft, because Phil Spencer has said that we will see Japanese exclusives from Microsoft. So we don't really know if they actually have a studio making a JRPG right now. I'm just going to assume JRPG. There's been light rumors in the past that they might be working with From Software. Now, I don't know how credible that is, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at this point. Given how like Microsoft's doubling down on gaming, they clearly have billions invested into gaming. And yeah, I just think it's a good time for Xbox fans because we have games coming out soon. There's a roadmap. There's plenty to look forward to. All the problems are seemingly getting fixed. You know, JRPGs are coming. And yes, I know we need Final Fantasy VII Remake, Pixel remasters, pretty much anything Final Fantasy. We need the next Kingdom Hearts game to come to Xbox Day 1. Anything Dragon Age. Basically, if you're a JRPG, you need to come to Xbox as well. That's how you grow a fan base. There's an active Yakuza fan base on Xbox now. There's an active Persona fan base on Xbox now. So, like, Final Fantasy has that chance. I don't know. I keep talking positively about Xbox because they've fixed mainly most of the problems, right? Studios fixed. game development fixed. They have second-party games in development as well, which they're keeping an eye on. And I've seen in chat, and I've seen a few people mention today, I think the only thing people don't like about Microsoft right now, which I think they could easily fix, it's Microsoft Awards.
Yeah, it's garbage now.
Yeah, like in the UK, bear in mind, I've only had access to Microsoft Awards since October. I think it's October 2019. And like, I think Microsoft Awards has been around for like a decade, but like, I've specifically only had access to it since 2019. And I think maybe too many people are getting too much stuff off it. Because like, if you do everything on Microsoft Awards, you can pay for your Game Pass, like every single month, and then still have money left over to save up to buy for something else. And I think maybe just too many people are earning too many points, because in 2022, people had the ability, or it might have been 2021, sorry, in 2021 or 2022, Microsoft removed the ability to transfer Microsoft reward points from one account to another. Now, to me, that didn't really mean anything, but it turns out, people have told me this, like they would have like 11 accounts, like making points, and then just transfer them to one. And I understand why they got rid of that, because clearly people were abusing the system. But we used to have a 2,000 point monthly bonus. Then they used to give us a 500 point thing every month, which never worked. You know, it'd be like getting an achievement in Forza, and then it would just never work. And then they got rid of that, and I understood. Then they took away half of the monthly bonus, so it was just 1,000 points. And then one day we woke up, and I think it was actually August, where they got rid of the September or monthly bonus altogether. And now I think it's like, if you do 3 searches a day on Bing, if you do that every day for 17 weeks, I think it's 17 weeks, you get 1,000 points. And we're getting less and less points than we used to. And today, we find out that if you used to play a Game Pass game every day and got an achievement, you would get 50 points. Now, it's 5. Now, what can I say? Like, I think Microsoft need to revert the 50 point thing. The 2,000 point rewards thing each month, people were angry at. But I've seen more people angry today, because that 50 points per day, people used to look forward to playing. Like I've had indie games lined up to play that I play every single day to make sure I get an achievement in a Game Pass title. And it's fun. I've experienced the games this way. And I think specifically the 50 point achievement Game Pass thing, they need to revert it. They need to go back to 50, because 5 points is way too low. Logan, I need to breathe. What do you think?
I agree. Like I think it started off where it was like incredible, and it was like everything you could possibly want and more. And then they kept stripping it down, and then now it's just like, well, it takes a lot of effort to get a little bit of something now. It's like they've gone to the opposite end of the spectrum, and I think there's a way to fix it. They really need to. And, you know, obviously there are bigger issues right now for them, like with pricing and other things going on for them to figure out. But it's an annoyance more than anything to me. And, like, did we talk about the ad thing yet? Or was that last time? I can't remember.
No. I think it happened the day after the podcast ended.
Okay, because I know some people absolutely lost their mind that a company would have the audacity to advertise their new game. And I know it's crazy, but you can take this stick on your controller and you can hit to the right twice and then hit A and it goes away. I know it's magical. I know it's some arcane secret, but letting you know, like, you can do that and it will go away and it won't bother you anymore.
Yeah, when it comes to that whole thing, so if people don't know, there was this thing, and I don't know if it was just the US, because I live in the UK, and I haven't had a single one of these, like, flash ads when you turn on the console. Maybe it's because I'm in, like, regular mode all the time. I'm not in low power mode. But, like, if you turn on your console, there's a flash screen for, hey, Call of Duty Modern Warfare is right around the corner. Pre-order it now. But if you click the stick twice to the right and press A or press B, you exit that. Now, bear in mind, I'm from the UK, right? Especially I'm from the northeast of the UK, northeast of England. We do this thing where if something's so small and not much, if it's not a big deal, people don't complain about it. Like, if there's a minor annoyance, you're expelling more energy complaining about it than resolving the situation, aka pressing B. And I thought people were okay when they did it with Starfield. People were okay when they did it with Forza, but now because they're doing it with Call of Duty, it's a problem. Bear in mind, I'm a realist, right? I understand how ads work. You know, ads on YouTube make sense. It pays for the service. The colossal amount of storage it requires for YouTube in general for people to upload content. Those ads support that. On Microsoft, they have to support, or I should say, market their own games. So when people were making articles about it, I thought people were being fired constantly, and there were more articles made about an ad flash page on a console. That was terrible. Like, again, a minor annoyance isn't worth complaining about. It really isn't. People were losing their minds over the top. Like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Again, I'm from the northeast of England. I'm a pretty laid back person. If it's not worth complaining about it, why complain about it? And I think it's weird because like Microsoft can't advertise their games on their console. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, PlayStation could advertise games on their console, it doesn't bother me. Like, that's how these things work. You know, you invest into a platform, they're gonna do things their way. But yeah, it was a weird situation. You know, back onto the whole Microsoft reward points thing. I didn't really plan on talking about it, but I've been asked about it a lot. I think when it comes to the 50-point achievement thing every day, I think people need to specifically like be nice to the people that work at Bing and do the rewards program. They do not make these choices, right? They have no idea of they have no control of the turmoil of what happens when these choices happen. So like, be nice to them because they are really cool people on Twitter, and don't go out of the way and bothering them. They are great people. Support them. So if you want something to change, talk about it. And believe me when I say it, people from Microsoft, they do pay attention when people talk about things. So if people start talking about the 50-point achievement thing, they might actually revert it. And outside of that, when it comes to Microsoft rewards, there's a 250 points reward if you die in limbo 11 times. So you can get that done pretty quickly.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah. I did it in about under a minute, so it's already done. But yeah, Microsoft Rewards. And by the way, I think Microsoft Rewards is a great program. Like, you can buy actual things with it. Like, I only found out not long ago that you can get Amazon cards. That's crazy. You know, I bought my Starfield controller with points, so it's a great program. And I think that, you know, people are going to be making like over 3,000 points less a month now because of the achievement points. I don't know, bit of a shame. But outside of that, it's been a good month for gaming. The gaming news at the minute's wild. All the stuff we heard from BlizzCon, it looks like we're going to see a bunch of single player games. And I think it's quite funny that in an industry where, and this isn't just directed at Sony, that a lot of companies are looking at, you know, battle passes and microtransactions and stuff. And seemingly enough, Microsoft has a ton of single-player games in development. And that's because Microsoft, like, they used to be so concentrated on doing a holiday lineup, right? We used to go an entire year without video games, and then at the end of the year, they'd launch everything they have, right? And then they'd be like, hey, this is our holiday lineup. Get our console, please. But now that Microsoft's moved their metric to Game Pass and players, they have to start releasing games throughout the entire year. So as Matt Booty said, like, they have to release or they want to release a new AAA game or a new big game every quarter. And with the studios they have now, with the games they've got lined up next year, with the ones that's announced, we're going to see a big game launch basically every quarter and other games in between. And that's incredible. We've never had that before on Xbox. Logan, can you remember? Let's go back to 2015 where we didn't know anything. Like, can you remember as an Xbox fan what that was like online?
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
Yeah.
Those were dark days when there was 4 or 5 studios, and not sure if they had a budget or who was going to be in charge of the company, and if they were even going to exist in a year or two, and like more more expensive but less powerful forced bundle, like all the bad things. Like it was bad times, and now it's things are even better, like position wise, than they were in the 360 golden era. Like, I know if you are, in the console war, obsessed, market share, whatever, sales, yes, they're not in the lead for that. But if you look at engagement and, software and their presence and their brand power and their stability and their resources and all the IP and talent they have, they've never been better than they are right now. And going forward, this is like basically the best description I can come up with is like this is a fully armed and operational battle station now, or like a freshly minted dreadnought leaving the shipyards. Like this it is ready to go. It's fully locked and loaded, and it's going to be something to behold.
Yeah, it's a good that you mentioned like the 360 generation. Microsoft were at the top, right? Microsoft were ahead of console sales, number one in NPD. I think it was like for 37 months in a row. And like the if people talked about gaming, it was 360. Have you got an Xbox? Yeah, like everyone had an Xbox. And remember back then, Microsoft maybe had one exclusive a year. So even though they had one exclusive a year, they were the biggest platform with the most hype. And even though they had the Red Ring of Death and all that stuff, like they were the gaming platform. And now it's kind of reversed. Microsoft is in third place, but guess who's benefiting from all these? Like Microsoft being third place might be horrible for console warring online, but we are getting more games because of it. Microsoft has to try like every few months to sell us on a new game. So the quality is going to go up. The amount of games coming out is going to go up. And it's just an exciting time to be an Xbox fan. And like, look, the problems. Studios, fixed. Japanese games, we're clearly going to get more. As much as people want to be pessimistic about it, I do think we will see the big JRPGs come over to Xbox in the next 18 months. It's a good time to be an Xbox fan. I'll just put it that way. Logan, have you got anything to say before we close out the show?
No, just oh, I guess one last thing. It's kind of a smaller news item, but it popped on my timeline during the show. Is that Into the Woods, which was or Night in the Woods, which was a very well received indie title, kind of a coming of age story, like animal type characters, like come back to town from college and deal with all this stuff, like very emotional, powerful narrative. Like they had another game coming and they just announced that it was canceled. And so that was a Revenant of the Woods, I think is what it was called. But yeah, some sad news from a good studio.
Yeah, I mean, there's unfortunate things like that at the minute. I think the new Tintin game, I think they announced that's going to be like a launch broken or something. I only saw a quick in my newsfeed, but like, unfortunately, we're gonna see that stuff all the time. The amount of games, there's games that get cancelled all the time that we don't even know about. You know, like hell, the Batman. There was a Batman game, an Arkham game that was set in the Beyond timeline. So it was basically going to be
Oh man,
Yeah,
that would have been incredible.
yeah. There's some artwork floating around, and they were actively in development for it. But it was, I think they were going to call it like Batman Arkham Beyond or something. And like, if you love, I can't speak today. If you love like that version of Batman, you're gonna be heartbreaking when you see those like art pieces because, man, like, and again, that game was never announced, and I'm still heartbroken. Anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing today. We have our socials in the description down below. We're always on Twitter, at least. Well, I'm always on Twitter posting about random game crap. And yeah, we'll be back the same time next week. Again, love everyone in chat. It's been an awesome time. We don't get bother at all. Best chat ever. I have the link to my last video which is 10 biggest games coming out in November. Most of those games still aren't out yet. The link for that is also in the description down below. For some reason, YouTube, unfortunately, hasn't shared it like they normally do. Hopefully, that's just a November thing. Anyway, we'll be back at the same time next week. And who knows, maybe we'll have more Mass Effect stuff to talk about. And we didn't even have time to go over every single topic. So anyway, we'll be back next week. We are out. Peace, everybody.